Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
President William Ruto, in an unprecedented move, pays a courtesy call to retired President Uhuru Kenyatta at his home in Gatundu, coming hot on the heels of fears that Ruto has lost the mountain's support.
You don't need any USAID, EU, etc. If you curb corruption, you have more than enough money to go around.
Kenya can operate without over-reliance on borrowing if the government steps up its efforts in the fight against corruption, European Union Ambassador to Kenya, Henriette Giga says.
We are moving in the wrong direction. Corruption is not reducing, it is increasing.
President William Ruto is the main impediment to the fight against corruption, with his decisions and appointments questioned with millions plundered in budgeted corruption.
We are not going to allow individual interests to enter into the selection panel.
The law is very clear that it should be parties with the representation in Parliament.
Plus, National Liberal Party clashes with Wiper Party both in Azimio, accusing Kalonzo Musyoka of sabotaging section of the allocated IBC Select Panel nominee. K24 Evening Edition begins right now. I'm Alan Owino. Our sign language interpreter for this session is Evelyn Wangoi. Now, in an unprecedented move, President William Ruto today paid a courtesy call to retired President Uhuru Kenyatta at his home in Ishaweri, Gatundu South, Kiambu County. In a statement sent to newsrooms by the office of the retired president, the visit is a normal and common practice for sitting former presidents to engage in matters of national importance. The duo discussed issues including political animosity in the country, matters taxation, and the raging debate on the reconstitution of the electoral body IBC. As Timothy Simona reports, Ruto's visit and apparent reconciliation with his predecessor comes on the heels of a perceived strained relationship since 2018.
Thank you, my friend.
Monday, 9th December 2024, Ishaweri, Gatundu South in Kiambu County. President William Ruto paid a courtesy call to retired President and his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta.
Thank you.
In a statement sent to newsrooms by the office of the retired President, the visit was described as normal and a common practice for sitting and former presidents to engage on matters of national importance.
Thank you.
The statement further says, pertinent issues affecting the nation like taxation laws, political animosity, and subsequent harassment of government critics, and inclusivity, emphasizing the need to seek consensus on development issues and governance were discussed.
Thank you.
Kenyatta and Ruto further deliberated on the need to expedite the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission IEBC to entrench democracy and a vibrant opposition. On his part, President Ruto agreed to engage all stakeholders in an effort to remove unnecessary tensions in the country and to propose a reconciliatory way forward. He further acknowledged Kenyatta for his statesmanship for overseeing a peaceful transfer of power in 2022, despite not supporting him. Ruto's visit came amid what many Kenyans perceived as a broken relationship between him and his former boss since the famous 2018 handshake. Ruto accused Uhuru for alienating him from government when he embraced Raila Odinga in 2018. Never mind, today, President Ruto has Raila in his government under the broad-based structure. Previously, the former president's office also accused the government for frustrating the operations of his office through budget cuts and delayed disbursements, and even targeting the former First family. But with Ruto's visit to Ishaweri and Kenyatta's acceptance to work and advise Ruto where necessary going forward, the once dynamic duo might have just reignited the old bromance.
Asante. Thank you for nyama. Karibu sana bwana.
Timothy Simwa, K24 TV.
Elsewhere, President William Ruto is the main impediment to fight against corruption. His decisions and appointments have given a major sign that he is not interested in fighting corruption. This is according to the AfriCog report launched on Monday, where the UDA government was accused of having plundered millions of shillings in budgeted corruption. Martin Opio with that report.
I'm bringing the next speaker.
With the 9th of December being the World Anti-Corruption Day,
AfriCog marked the day with a report that laid bare the corruption menace under President William Ruto in the last 2 years of his presidency.
William Samoei Ruto.
The report claims that corruption cases have been on the rise and Kenyans will continue to lose money as the government has shown no interest in the quest to weed out the corruption monster. As per AfriCog, President Ruto has been the biggest impediment to the fight.
Many of those asked, the majority of those asked, gave the responsibility for that movement in the wrong direction to the president himself, which, as you know, the buck stops with him. So that's only to be expected. Yeah, so that's why we said we are moving in the wrong direction. Corruption is not reducing, it is increasing.
Gladwell Otieno, AfriCog Executive Director, asserts that appointments done by President William Ruto in various sectors are clear indication of the declining zeal to fight corruption.
Impunity is increasing. We've seen people being, seen charges being dropped against people who were accused of some very serious crimes. Some of the people who were appointed into the cabinet were accused of serious crimes, not just, you know, civil infractions.
The Auditor General's reports show that 20% of government expenditure is actually being stolen.
Withdrawal of corruption cases targeting prominent individuals was also cited as disheartening to Kenyans at large, including how the judiciary handles the said cases.
There are not that many people who think that there is still a capacity to do anything about corruption in this country.
These are not just individual outbreaks of corruption scandals. This is a system which is entrenched and which works to reproduce corruption and impunity, and it will get worse if nothing happens to stop it.
Despite claims that government loses 2 billion shillings a day, the amount is said to be even higher as officials in government devise new ways of pilfering funds through budgeted corruptions.
Money is put into the budget for no other purpose than to be extracted for corrupt ends.
Whistleblowers appear to be persecuted. AfriCog is also disturbed by how the government responded to the Gen Z uprising, demanding an end to corrupt dealings and good governance. Some were killed, arrested, abducted and tortured.
They tend to weaken those institutions which compete with them or which pose a threat to them. So we've seen, for example, the controller of budget, who's been quite outspoken, being threatened and sued, prosecuted. The president invited members of the opposition into his government, so there are ever more mouths to feed. No? You remember the phrase, it's our turn to eat.
EACC was not spared, with the organization lamenting the declining cases coming from the agency.
Reports to the EACC are declining year on year. We're now talking about only 5,000 complaints being made to them, when 5 years ago they used to receive 10,000 complaints a year. It tells you that people have lost faith in that institution.
The Adani contracts relating to JKIA and K24, as well as the edible oil scandal, are said to be some of the biggest corrupt dealings under the Kenya Kwanza government. Martin Opio, K24 TV, Nairobi.
As the world commemorates the International Anti-Corruption Day, European Union Ambassador to Kenya, Henriette Giga, now says Kenya can be able to operate without over-reliance on borrowing if the government can step up its efforts in the fight against corruption. As Ian Ketanyi now files, her sentiments were echoed by British High Commissioner, who noted that the UK government will aid in revealing those stashing proceeds of corruption abroad.
During the commemoration of the International Anti-Corruption Day, that the European Union Ambassador to Kenya, Henriette Giga, was quick to note that Kenya could be in a position to freely operate without extensive borrowing from institutions like the IMF, if at all the government can not only articulate its policies on fighting corruption, but enforce the same.
You don't need any IMF, you don't need any World Bank, you don't need any USAID, EU, etc. If you curb corruption, you have more than enough money to go around. That's the opportunity, the golden opportunity for Kenya, but it needs a very big shift. If you stole just 500 Kenyan shillings, rather than stealing 1,000, we can cut theft by half. And drastically reduce our external borrowing.
Despite lauding the steps made by EACC in recovering proceeds of crime, Giga lamented over the now devolved corruption.
Money gets into counties, but the accountability mechanisms are not yet established. Otherwise, the only thing we do is decentralizing corruption. This is certainly not the idea. The idea of devolution was to bring services to every single Kenyan citizen.
On his part, British High Commissioner to Kenya, Neil Wigan, in a move that he said would help fight corruption, hinted at the UK government cracking the whip on those stashing proceeds of crime abroad, as well as those facilitating the same.
So we will be looking at those corrupt individuals who use institutions in the UK, who try to hide their money in the UK, to make sure that that cannot happen. And we will act against those individuals who we believe are facilitating corruption internationally. So please look out for what we will say later on today as proof of what I'm saying.
EACC Chairperson Bishop David Oginde, while narrating the challenges faced in the fight against corruption, called on Kenyans to properly vet leaders before electing them into office.
They are already trying to get me out. Parliament almost got me out just the other day. Thank God for the law that the Speaker upheld, and now I can still stand here as chair of EACC. Let us participate in the appointment and election of men and women of integrity. One of the biggest challenges we face as a nation is that when it comes to voting, we choose people according to what they have given us.
Corruption remains one of the greatest challenges of our time. Its tentacles reach into every aspect of our society, eroding trust in institutions, stifling economic progress, and denying ordinary citizens access to opportunities and services. The cost is particularly heavy for young people as corruption undermines education, employment prospects, and societal equity.
Youths are now the new hope in the fight against corruption in Kenya. They have been on the front line in advocating for good governance, as was seen during the Gen Z protests. The Association of Media Women in Kenya, through the coordinator of the Usawa program, Lona Sempele, say there is need to empower the youth with skills in the fight against poor leadership that has escalated corruption. Mumbi Wambugu with that report.
Can we make the world a better place?
During a forum held in Nakuru to discuss and brainstorm on the ways to combat corruption, youths were thirsty for better governance. Brian Silways, a spoken word artist, says the youth will not relent in this fight. He says they will continue to fight through art until they are heard.
Unapata mwizi akiiba simu anapigwa na mob justice anakufa, but politician akiiba mabilioni ya pesa, there's nothing being done to that. So sometimes hati na wa morali.
Another artist, Samuel Njoroge alias Priest the Poet, who uses the character of a priest to advocate against violation of human rights, says young people have a great responsibility to instill good values in the society.
The uprisal of the Gen Zs during the protest has made the people to realize that we the Kenyans are also, we the youths are also politically conscious.
Through the Usawa program facilitated by Amwick, the youths were armed with skills and empowered to enable them carry out their roles as the new watchdogs of good leadership and upright vices within the society.
Youth must recognize that they have power to bring about change. Your voices matter. You can actually influence laws and policies. You broke down the finance bill for us to understand technical knowledge that people thought could not even be understood was broken down for the whole country by our youth. So you can help us understand our laws and our policies and our rights as citizens.
Wito wangu kwa vijana ni kwamba kwa muda mwingi sana tumesema kwamba sisi ni viongozi wa kesho. Lakini sasa kesho imefika na sisi ndio tuko. Kwa hivyo ni sisi yafaa tuungane, ni sisi yafaa tuje mbele, ni sisi yafaa tushikane mikono ili tuweze kuona ni vipi ambavyo tunaweza pambana na hili janga la ufisadi. Manake si watu wengine ambao wanatuangalia, si watu kutoka nje ambao watakuja tusaidia.
Religious leaders present said time has come for the clergy to come forth and speak in unison against corruption.
You are yet to see more because, as you can see, the church doesn't act just like the civil society. Something comes and it also erupts, because the bishops have to go first to the prayer, meditate, and also they get the right way through the Holy Spirit. So that's why we take our time in doing anything.
We need to say no to corruption in this country, because resources are allocated and we are not seeing the output of the resources that is being given to many institutions in the government. So it is to tell Kenyans, let us stand and fight this corruption in totality.
A recent research conducted by Transparency International indicates that Kenya is ranked 126 out of 180 countries in the corruption index.
Watu wako TikTok tap kwa sababu kwa tap hakuna maji na flow.
Mumbi Wambogo, K24 TV.
Well, that report by Mumbi Wambogo brings us to a fast break right in K24 Evening Edition. We'll be back in a short while.
As the sun rises, so do we, as we trust it to rise and set without any worries interrupting your day. StarTime's home solar solution with solar panels, hybrid inverter, and lithium battery, powering your prosperity and happier life, empowering you to do the things that really matter. A complete and reliable home solar solution. Call us today. StarTime Solar.